Euromaxx highlights. Coming up on the show, career chance, young talent at the Southern French Festival for Fashion and Photography. Right rhythm. James Last is 80 years young and still touring. Progressive Paris, Nicolas Sarkozys and his vision of the future French capital. Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Karen Helmstedt.
Greetings from Berlin and a warm welcome to our highlights of the week, one of which had to be British artist David Hockney's appearance in southern Germany. A notorious rebel of the art world, he's considered one of the most influential artists of the last century, and while many will remember him for his sunlit California swimming pool paintings from back in the 1960s, a selection of his newest work, now on display in Swäbisch Hall, shows him getting back to his roots.
Spring has come to the Kunsthalle Wirt in Swäbisch Hall in the shape of David Hockney's landscape paintings. The exhibition features more than 70 new works from the British artist, captured images of his home county of Yorkshire. All of them date from the past 3 years. Even at 71, Hockney never tires of challenging and reinventing himself. Painting is his life.
What else is there to do? I've always done a lot of work, actually, but I'm not. This was quite a burst of energy, and in a way I'm quite aware when you get on what you might call a roll in English, a roll, and you go with it because they end. They do end. And I've had lots of things like that.
Hockney generates a great deal of interest. He's considered one of the most important contemporary British artists, and his works over the years show an extensive range. Born in 1937, he studied art in London, lived the bohemian life, and openly declared his homosexuality. His lifestyle inspired him. In the late 1960s and early 70s, his pictures of swimming pools in vibrant acrylics and unusual photo collages and portraits brought him worldwide fame and earned him membership in the international jet set.
Well, I didn't hide my talents under a bushel. I use them. I don't regret much. I don't hold inquests. I'm not finished yet. I've quite a bit to do. I've no intention of leaving here just yet. And I admit, I'm driven, actually. I'm driven, yeah.
In 2000, after years of living in California, Hockney moved back to his native Yorkshire. His latest pictures use his rediscovered love of its countryside as a motif. His works reflect the changing seasons and times of day and the changes in color associated with them. Nature as a new subject. Is Hockney mellowing with age?
What I like about nature is it's a little quieter, I mean, in sound than the city, but it's not soft.
His pictures seem free and spontaneous, but their size demands precise planning. Once captured, the image is divided up among several small canvases of equal size. He works either in his studio or outdoors, surrounded by nature itself.
Mind you, to do all that work, I did need assistance. I have a very good little team, and they too are a little bit mad, meaning they're willing to work mad hours. We work mad hours, sometimes very long days, sometimes short days. So you have to organise it. I pointed out you have to plan to be spontaneous, actually. And with that, I'm going to leave you.
With his latest paintings, David Hockney is returning to his roots, on his way back to nature and to himself.
And from painting to photography, and when Gerhard Launer first got started doing the aerial variety, he hired himself a photographer who unfortunately promptly got motion sickness on their first flight. So instead he decided to hire a pilot, whereupon Launer himself was the one feeling like he needed the little baggie. Well, from that point on he decided to do both things himself, namely fly the plane and control the camera. Sounds a bit tricky, but by now he's had over 30 years of experience, and our reporter joined him on a recent flight.
Germany's most beautiful places, seen from above. These are excerpts from a film made up entirely of aerial pictures. The images were shot by Gerhard Launer, a pilot and photographer from Würzburg in Bavaria. His equipment, a high-definition digital camera and a Cessna with extra fuel tanks. Not to mention an eye for the perfect picture.
The interesting thing is that I can see structures that I would never see on the ground. I can only see them from the air. These are things I see spontaneously, by chance, and that's how I take pictures. They aren't planned.
Launer takes off to collect more images for his new DVD. He's been working as an aerial photographer for 35 years. In that time, he's gathered 10,000 flying hours and 250,000 pictures. Those include Berlin before and after reunification.
The ones that really catch the eye are the shots of the Brandenburg Gate with the wall. On the west, you have the tourists looking over. In 2007, I repeated the shots. When you look at it, you see how the whole architecture has changed. It's impressive. It's completely different than it was in 1982.
Today's subject comes into view. It's the Residence, a Baroque palace in Würzburg. This is when he comes into his own, spending hours flying and taking photographs at a 60-degree angle. Few people have Gerhard Launer's piloting and photography skills.
It's taxing sometimes. You have to concentrate on many things at once. But I've gotten so used to it now that I couldn't do it any other way.
Launer has time to rest when the sun goes down.
The weather's been great. It was really nice toward the evening. The colors were beautifully warm. I think the result should be good.
Launer works from a converted farmhouse. He gets regular visits from his friends who come to look at the most recent pictures on display in his studio.
When a lot of people, including me, fly over the same place, then we see it. But he sees it differently. He'll return to shoot photos with the right angle and at the right height to get the light. He composes his pictures better.
Launer has already published a number of photography books. There are only 3 copies of this book, a present for Pope Benedict. The new DVD includes the pictures of Würzburg Palace. Launer animates the pictures on his computer and chooses a soundtrack. There's no need for a commentary.
To be honest, the only thing I'm trying to achieve with the Germany DVD is to show what beautiful things Germany has to offer. I'd be happy if some people saw the artistic aspect, but of course there are documentary pictures as well. What I'm trying to achieve is a mix of the two.
There are plenty of images still to be taken from the sky, even beyond Germany. Gerhard Launer's big dream is a photography flight across Antarctica.
Well, a drive around Italy's beautiful Lake Como is what it's all about at the Concorso d'Eleganza, where lovers of vintage cars have been gathering for 80 years of mutual appreciation. Now, this is less of a rally and more of an automotive beauty contest, so Euromaxx cruised along with a long-time aficionado.
the Concorso d'Eleganza, a parade of the world's most elegant cars. Here in Cernobbio, a small town on the shores of Lake Como, vintage cars are on display, each a rarity. Among those who've come here, Swiss designer Alfredo Häberli. He specializes in furniture and everyday objects, but here at the Concorso is the Isogrifo, a 1970 Italian sports car which made him choose his career.
Mein ganzes Leben steckt da drin.
My whole life is encapsulated in this. If you ask me, I became a designer because of this.
Ich bin Designer geworden wegen diesem Entwurf.
My favorite car was the Isogrifo, as a matchbox car, a toy. So seeing a real one 44 years later is really wonderful.
Häberli decided to become a designer at the age of 4 when he realized people could create objects as beautiful as the Isogrifo. Häberli has other favorites as well, especially among the classic cars here, like this 1955 Maserati.
The proportions at the rear over the back wheel, they're just perfect. It's a wonderful sculpture. These are things that give me the feeling cars have souls.
But the popular attraction this year was this 1938 Alfa Romeo, which won the Coppa d'Oro, the event's most coveted prize.
You see the way the form of the chassis carries over onto the windshield. There's so much love and so much thought in every detail.
The cars are displayed in a leisurely parade driven by their owners, some of whom have driven their vehicles all their lives.
This takes place only in the Via d'Este and nowhere else in the world. People sitting in cars that are part of history.
The Concorso d'Eleganza first started attracting visitors to Lake Como 80 years ago. From the start, design played a key role in which cars took part. Nowadays, classic and vintage car fans come here from as far away as the US and Japan.
The place is quite unique. It's very, very particular and exclusive, and this makes that the owners like to come here.
As the sun sets over Lake Como, there's no end in sight to the talk about car design.
And now it's over to the French capital, Paris, where President Nicolas Sarkozy has great plans for that city's future development. Known for its historical beauty and charm, Paris also suffers from chronic traffic and pollution problems. So, in the spirit of Baron Haussmann, a new generation of architects has been asked to bring the place up to speed, and their proposals were unveiled just this week at the Museum of Architecture.
Nicolas Sarkozy takes a bold look into how Paris could look in the future. The city's architecture museum is presenting blueprints and models submitted by teams from around the world. The French capital is set for a makeover. The exhibition, entitled Le Grand Paris, marks the first step.
Greater Paris will no longer be just an agglomeration. There will be no more unstable zones, and people's lives will no longer depend on the neighborhood they live in. Where you come from will become irrelevant. Truthful, beautiful, great, and just. That is the agenda of this campaign.
Vrai, beau, grand, juste. Voilà le programme du Grand Paris.
The various plans have one thing in common: improving Greater Paris's infrastructure. French architect Yves Lyon wants to build 20 new towns around the old city centre, while his compatriot Antoine Grumbach has suggested linking the city with the Atlantic coast. Christian de Port-Saint-Parc takes a pragmatic approach. He envisions a monorail.
Paris needs something more advanced in terms of transportation. The traffic issue is neglected. The entire area is blocked up with streets and railways.
Majestic old buildings like the Arc de Triomphe and the Eiffel Tower are how people typically imagine the city. But Greater Paris comprises far more than that. It's already home to over 11 million people and growing. Acclaimed architect Jean Nouvel has suggested vertical growth instead of a greater girth. A new Manhattan by the Seine?
I propose inserting high-rises at specific locations, like acupuncture needles. The current blocks are terrible. We have to realign the skyline and link up the terraces. There has to be harmony so that people can discover the city from up there.
An additional challenge is making the city greener with more parks and recreation areas. German architect Finn Geipel foresees breathing new life into the city's waterways.
We suggest bringing these landscapes back onto the mental map of the population, both for people who live in the center of Paris and for those who live elsewhere in the metropolitan area. And also, of course, for everybody coming in from outside Paris.
It's not the first time that Paris has been revamped. In the 19th century, civic planner Baron Haussmann transformed the city, erecting 40,000 new buildings and carving out the now trademark boulevards. Paris later underwent dramatic changes, especially during the presidency of François Mitterrand. He oversaw the construction of the Louvre Pyramid, the La Défense district, and other major civic buildings during the 1980s. Meanwhile, the banlieue, the loose arrangement of concrete suburbs on the edge of Paris, have suffered from neglect. Many of the entries featured a long overdue upgrading of the banlieue. Roland Castro wants to create new suburban centers complete with a proper infrastructure.
This area is completely fragmented, especially in the east, north, and south. They're breaking up into separate parts. There's extreme diversity in areas 5 to 10 kilometers out. It's time to do something.
The French government now wants to turn the various ideas and plans into concrete action. Whatever the outcome, the future for Greater Paris looks bright.
And there's nothing like the present for Germany's best-known big band leader, James Last, also known as the king of non-stop dancing. As a composer and musician, Last delights in turning any type of music, from Gregorian chants to grunge rock and roll, into a mainstream instrumental number. And generations of Europeans love him for it. And having just turned 80 years old, he's doing what he does best on a new European tour.
The popular band leader is in his element. At 80, James Last still knows how to get his audiences grooving. Like last Saturday, when he performed for 10,000 fans in the nearly sold-out O2 World Arena in Berlin. It was the official kickoff of his tour through 23 European cities. For James Last, an 80th birthday was no reason to consider retiring from the music business. James Last was born in Bremen on April 17, 1929. A trained jazz bassist, he had a breakthrough in Germany with his first record, Non-Stop Dancing, in 1965. Post-war German society wanted to party, and James Last provided the music. He was the inventor of what was known as the happy party sound. That consisted of medleys of popular songs underlaid with dance beats and party crowd noise. The mix provided music and mood in a single package. The sound was an international hit too. James Last sold millions of albums, and if some critics dismissed his music as simplistic, he didn't let it bother him.
Well, if Elvis Presley had sung 2 of your titles, and Puff Daddy had sampled your music, and American films had taken your music, and millions of people all over the world loved your music, then somebody must have been doing something right. Maybe it was me. I don't know.
And his fans appreciate that attitude. For many of them, James Last is a living legend.
He's incredibly popular. Just look at all the people here.
We used to play this music endlessly, like it was, all the different styles. If this man can go on stage today, it's worth seeing.
The 3-hour-long concert gave the fans everything they'd come for. On the program were the well-known classics along with newer hits.
It's amazing to hear it. My knees were trembling. It shook me up so much. I love this music. The sound is indescribably beautiful.
For James Last and his musicians, the celebration continued long after the concert was over. True to the motto, let's make the party last.
And finally, the International Festival of Fashion and Photography has proven to be the launching pad for many a new talent. Taking place every spring in the south of France, this is an interdisciplinary event that showcases young fashion designers and photographers, and Euromaxx was there.
Hyères-les-Palmiers is a popular resort on the Côte d'Azur, but the weather could be better today. With the rough surf and wind, it's not exactly the most glamorous backdrop for a fashion and photography festival. But the young participants from around the world don't seem to mind. For the 10 finalists in the 2 categories, the international event is a unique opportunity to present their works to a professional audience. For some of the photographers, this is their first exhibition, and for the designers, the first fashion show.
Here you have the opportunity to witness the beginning of a career, or the chance to actually work with some of these designers. For these young designers, it's as wonderful for them as it is for us. A real exchange takes place here.
Amy Adams is from the US. She's studying photography in New York. This is the first time she's ever been to France.
It's an unbelievable experience as far as making connections and getting to know people and hopefully finding work and just really getting myself out there.
Arabella Mills also came from the US to southern France. The fashion director of Wallpaper magazine is looking for new talent.
It's always, very modern and great selection of people. And I get to meet them, and I have to really translate the vision into how I might be able to use them in an editorial for a magazine, and it's a great opportunity.
Representatives from the most important design houses routinely show up at Hyères. You never know if the next Jean-Paul Gaultier could be among the finalists. It's too big an opportunity to miss. The festival has seen a number of winners go on to successful careers, such as the designer duo Victor and Rolf. The 2 Dutchmen took the main prizes in 1993, and since then have been making a name for themselves with provocative creations.
For young designers, it's really important to be able to present their work at festivals like this. Hyères is not only a French fashion event, it's international. This is where designers meet fashion experts and buyers for the first time.
German finalist Alice Knackfuß designs men's fashion. Just being here has already been worthwhile.
You make contacts with people from the fashion industry. I don't really want to name any names, but business cards are definitely being exchanged in the showroom. A lot of people were interested. For a young designer, it's really incredible.
Up on the runway, her unconventional designs for men are making their debut under the critical eye of fashion journalists.
I like the choice of materials, quality of the lines. Each participant has managed to present an original collection which is totally their own.
The spectrum runs the gamut from hardcore rocker outfits to patterned models. Very creative, but for some apparently not creative enough.
It was a bit too timid. I think the designers could have been somewhat bolder.
Whether this year's winners go on to successful careers is impossible to tell at this stage. Marita Mastina and Roland's Peterkops from Latvia took the fashion prize, which is worth €15,000, and they get to design a collection for French label 123.
They presented the strongest collection and showed their own personalities and that they could turn their ideas into reality. We want to see more from them in the future.
Among the photographers, Linus Bill from Switzerland took top honours. He gets a one-year scholarship to New York School of Visual Arts. Afterwards, the participants celebrate on the beach. Young talents and old pros under one umbrella.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of our Euromaxx highlights. Hope you'll join us again next time. And until we meet again, from all of us here in Berlin, thanks for watching and bye-bye. Auf Wiedersehen.